had never been afraid of it before, but that night, something felt different. My 3 dogs were restless, their fur bristling. I went down to check, and that's when I saw something new, a staircase that shouldn't be there. The air was cold, heavy. I closed my eyes for a moment to take a deep breath, and then we fell. There was no wind, no impact, just an endless void until suddenly, everything stopped. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my apartment, but something felt off. I climbed the stairs and stepped outside with the dogs. That's when I realized this wasn't New York. The streets were different, the smells, the air. Everything seemed slightly displaced. I started walking aimlessly, trying to find something familiar. Nothing, I had no idea where I was. After what felt like an eternity wandering, an elderly man passed by and nodded at me. "Are you lost?" "I think so." He smiled. First time in Chicago, my heart skipped a beat. Chicago, shock washed over me. My apartment was in New York. How did I end up in Chicago? I grabbed my phone and called my husband.
Love, something really strange just happened.
"What?" "I'm in Chicago." He laughed, thinking it was a joke. But when he heard the panic in my voice, he grew serious. "What do you mean? Did you drive there? Take a train?" I don't know, I was in the basement. I went down some stairs and now I'm here, silenced on the other end. I'm going home. I waited anxiously, trying to calm the dogs and myself. When he finally arrived, he sent me a message. "I'm home, going into the basement." My heart pounded. A few minutes later, another message came. "I'm in Chicago." Terror gripped me. Before I could respond, I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around slowly and saw my husband walking toward me. But if he was still on the phone with me, then who was this? The thing in front of me looked like my husband. Same clothes, same features, but something was wrong. It smiled, and it wasn't his smile. Finally, the dogs trembled. I had never seen them like this. Every instinct screamed at me to run. I grabbed my phone and, without taking my eyes off him, called my husband again. Again, the phone rang from inside the thing's chest. My stomach twisted, the muffled ring. My stomach twisted, the muffled ringtone echoed from within it, as if something or someone was inside. The thing tilted its head, watching me like a predator eyeing its prey. No need to call him anymore. My mind raced. If I had crossed over without realizing it, then where was the real my husband? I ran. The dogs bolted with me through the empty streets as the world around me seemed to crumble. Air turned thick and buildings that languid like mirages. I reached my building and ran down to the basement. The stairs were still there, but now at the bottom there was a door that hadn't been there before. Love? Nothing. hand, it gripped my chest, but I grabbed the door handle. The metal was ice cold. I took a deep breath and pulled the door open. I was pulled inside. I woke up in a dark, damp space. The air was thick with the smell of mold. I heard someone breathing heavily nearby. It was my husband. You're here. You're here. I held him tightly. It was him, no doubt. But there was no time for relief. We need to get out of here. He pointed to another door at the far end of the room. You must think that's the way. The dogs were tense, but they followed without hesitation. We pushed open the door and stepped through, and we fell again. This time when we landed, the world felt right. The smells, the streets, the gray sky of New York. We were back. The apartment was the same, the basement intact, no door. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. But as I looked at my phone, a chill ran down my spine. The call was still active, and on the other end, a voice identical to my husband's whispered. Voiced. I think you left something behind. The low, distorted laugh sent shivers through me. I looked back at the basement. Everything seemed normal, but I knew it wasn't empty. Before anything else could happen, we sealed the stairs with cement that very day. We never went down there again. Life went on. We tried to forget, pretended nothing had happened. But sometimes at night, my phone vibrates for no reason. And when I pick it up, there's only static. I thought we had escaped. I thought sealing the stairs, closing that door would put an end to it. But as the days passed, the feeling didn't fade. It lingered, quietly, creeping into every corner of my mind. I couldn't shake the sense that something was waiting for us, something we hadn't fully understood. Then, one night, as I sat alone in the apartment, I noticed something strange. The reflection in the window, my own face looked different. There was a subtle shift in the way my eyes seemed to follow my movements, as though it was no longer me, but someone else, someone familiar. Watching it was as if the world outside wasn't quite real anymore. It felt hollow, like a stage set designed to mimic reality, but missing something essential. I tried to ignore it, but the whispers returned. You never left. It was a simple thought, but it twisted in my mind like a knot. We hadn't just crossed dimensions, had we? Hadn't we simply moved through layers of reality? Layers that were never meant to be crossed. What if the other side was in a different world at all, but a part of this one that we were never supposed to see? The dogs were acting strange again, more skittish than ever. They would bark at nothing,
their bodies tense as though they could sense something out of place. And every time I looked at my phone, I saw messages that I couldn't quite explain. They weren't from anyone I knew. They weren't even real. Do you remember me? You've always been here. I tried to reach out to my husband to talk to him about it, but his answers were distant. He would look at me, but it felt as though he wasn't really seeing me. His eyes clouded, like he was staring through me rather than in me. Each time I zoned to him, I heard his voice crack just a little, like a worn-out recording, repeating words he didn't fully understand. One evening, I stood before the sealed basement door again. The silence in the apartment felt heavy, as if time had stretched in a way it wasn't meant to. I felt an undeniable pull, an invisible force that beckoned me. Was it the house calling me back? Or was it something else, something older, something that had always been here? I reached for the door, my fingers trembling. The handle was still cold. The air around me was thick, charged with something I couldn't name. I opened it, and I wasn't surprised when I didn't find a basement, but a vast infinite. And I wasn't surprised when I didn't find a basement, but a vast infinite space. No walls, no ceiling, just a void. In the middle of it all stood a mirror. I stepped closer, drawn to it, and I saw myself. But it wasn't me, not anymore. This reflection was hollow, the eyes empty, staring into a past that had never existed. The version of me in the mirror was smiling, but the smile didn't reach its eyes. It was an empty gesture, a mask for something much darker. Behind the smile, I could hear the soft echo of my own voice whisper.
We never left, we never will. Trapped in the dark where time stands still. Shadows whisper, calling me back. A door once open leaves only cracks. Are we real or lost in time? Falling deeper past the lines, past the lines. Past the lines, there was no way back. cracks. The truth hit me cold and sharp. The basement, the stairs, the door, they had never been a way out, only a way in. We hadn't escaped, we had slipped in to the fractures of our own reality, where nothing was real, nothing made sense. We were never meant to leave. We were never meant to leave. The reflection stepped forward too real. When it touched me, I felt the weight of all we had abandoned. The life, the people, the illusion. And then I understood. This wasn't just a house. It was a space between what was and what could have been. We hadn't crossed dimensions, we had crossed time. And in doing so, we had left behind something vital, something that could never return. The door slammed shut. The house had always been here, the cracks had always been here. Now I was part of them. A voice whispered from the void, you never left, you never will. And I knew then there was no way back. There never had been.